I grew up in an atheist household. My parents had long ago left the religions they were raised into, Christianity and the Jehovah's Witnesses, so I never attended any form of religious service throughout my entire childhood. However, they never hid the tenets of religion from me. I was encouraged to read the Holy Bible and any other religious texts that might interest me, to investigate both their flaws and their nuggets of wisdom, and consider whether they spoke to me. This was what my parents did, which, along with their negative experiences regarding church authority, had eventually led them to abandon their religions, so they assumed it would do the same for me. And it did. I learned the facts of life, evolution, genetics, the birth of the universe through the Big Bang, and I saw that these things made sense, and that religion serves as an escape from harsh realities, as an ultimately dysfunctional coping mechanism. But that is not what I'm here to talk to you about. There is another unspoken truth in the idea that religions function as a coping mechanism, which is that some people need a coping mechanism to deal with the harshness of reality. And if it isn't a literal God who we can pray to and talk to, and who we can be assured is guiding all the events of our lives down a reasonable and moral path, then what is it? Is there a reasonable and moral path? And it's all well and good to say that there doesn't need to be one, but that's only true when times are good. When you're healthy and have food to eat and sources of enjoyment, you don't need to ask how to cope with suffering. But what do we do when faced with such overwhelming, senseless suffering that we no longer desire life? I had a difficult childhood. During my earliest memories, I was sick and in constant pain. I dealt with violence in my family. I started engaging in self destructive behavior at only 5 years old. And for a long time, I rebelled against the idea that there is nothing out there to save us. It made me childishly angry that I had to suffer this way for no reason, and I rebelled by seeking my own gods. I didn't even care if they were real. I wanted to believe, because I saw that people who believe feel motivated. They say things like, I'm going to fight my way through cancer because I know God loves me. I know there is a reason for everything. Everything happens for a reason. They speak in tongues and have ecstatic visions. Just watch a truly religious person talk about heaven, and you will see the kind of pure, ecstatic joy that makes suffering seem minuscule. Their beliefs, whether true or not, have an obviously enjoyable psychological effect on them. And I wanted that effect. And I knew that effect was possible because I had felt it. I knew that ecstasy when I felt loved and in love with something total and infinite. I had imaginary friends as a kid, or more accurately, imaginary soulmates, and I had a child's ability to completely disregard whether they were real or not. They were real to me, they would love me forever, and I knew that we were going to see each other in dreams. When I fell asleep for the last time on my deathbed, I would be thinking of them, and therefore truly with them. I knew heaven. They gave me a genuine sense of peace about everything that exists because I truly believed. But it's difficult, possibly insane, to reach that level of belief and peace. It's denied to us as we grow up and face reality. People told me that the eternal love was not real, that my imaginary lover was a fantasy, a daydream. And that was true. So I started to turn to something else, religion. In order to intoxicate us by providing motivation for us, God must be something that is personally important to us in an almost nostalgic or aesthetic way. We have to have a relationship with God. In order to have godlike power over our own psyche, in order to play on our emotions and give us genuine relief, God has to be personally relevant. We have to not only consciously but also deeply, unconsciously give over all power to this being or idea. Existing religions with deities did not do this for me. I had no familial connection to any god to begin with, so I would have to gain a belief in a god's credibility and importance by watching them prove it to me, feeling them touch my heart in some way, and that did not happen. I learned early on that nothing happens when you pray, and that these systems were ultimately just very arbitrary. There is no reason to pick any given system out of the many that exist. I invited God to give me a sign, and no God came forward to take ownership of creation. I didn't get a sign. So I had to make a fake God based on something that I could almost believe was not fake. The strategy I tried was turning to logic because I thought that might inherently have the power to motivate me and console me. I started practicing utilitarianism before I even knew the term. And once I did, I read Singer and Bentham religiously, in every sense of the word. I believed that I was morally obligated to do the thing that would maximize pleasure and minimize suffering as much as possible for the greatest number of people possible long term. That's why I had to live. Not because life is worth living, but because I had to keep marching on in misery to help others. To help others. To help others how? How do I know what maximizes pleasure and minimizes suffering long term? I'm ultimately just going to do what looks like a good idea to me, and meanwhile, I'll be miserable. This is a major issue with utilitarianism. I wasn't very effective during this time of my life. I spent a lot of time signing petitions and agonizing over whether I recycled enough and having severe daily panic attacks caused by obsessive compulsive disorder. I also spent a lot of time arguing with others, insisting that they do exactly what I do and believe exactly what I believe. Now, I think signing petitions and recycling and helping others in all the ways that I chose at that time are fine activities, and there's absolutely a place for them in our lives. I still do those things. But they don't bring meaning to my life in a personal way. They don't make the suffering feel worth it. And they definitely shouldn't be forced in the ways that I tried to force them. If religion is a drug, morality is a life support system. It completely fails to address the fact that our own desires or even needs aren't being met, that we feel weak and powerless. It just keeps us alive and doing supposedly honorable things in a spiteful way. It gives us the satisfaction of feeling superior to others while in fact becoming more and more stuffy and unpleasant to be around, even vicious toward those who disagree with us. Vicious toward those who have freedom from morality and instead get to act on their ethics because they have ethics. They have things they actually care about, codes of action which bring them satisfaction because they meet certain deep-seated desires, including altruistic ones, but not limited to those. Fortunately for me, morality crumbled when I developed ethics. When I truly cared for something or someone, that was what triumphed, and I could see how hollow all of my moral prescriptions had been compared to this genuine, rich, personal calling. That's a true call to action. So, what was my call to action? What was the God, the ethical commander, who finally pulled me in? It was the same thing that brought me ecstasy in the first place. A lover. Only this one was not an imaginary friend, but a real person. A person I cared for so deeply that I would have done anything. I mean, literally anything, including things that are abhorrent under utilitarianism, to protect him. The existence of this person in my life was what finally blotted out all the pain as insignificant forever. Imagine how lucky I was to meet my God in person. The most devout monks and nuns never get to do that. But he was not lucky, only me. I was not God to him, and how could I have been? He believed, above all, in living without crutches, without religion or morality. He endured incredible pain without support. He genuinely examined death without utilitarian obligations as a barrier to protect him, and still chose to live. That was what made him breathtaking to me, and that, I believe, was ultimately what made me disgusting to him. It was this person who introduced me to Anton LaVey and the Satanic Bible. If you don't know what the Satanic Bible actually teaches, it is probably not what you expect. Many LaVeyan Satanists, myself included, do not believe in a literal devil, nor do we go around trying to be bad. Instead, Satanism takes its name from an inversion of the kind of life rejection preached in Christianity and other ascetic religions. It advocates respect for the will of all living creatures who you come across in life, including and especially yourself. Honor your own desires by bettering yourself and earning success. Understand that others may oppose you and that you may have to protect yourself against them, but that you shouldn't become the aggressor, because then you'll have others trying to protect themselves against you. Understand also that others may have a will and a worldview which is beautiful to you, and you should befriend those people by respecting their wishes and treating their consent as unimpeachable and trying to help their aims flourish. You should do these things not because a god tells you to, but because you want to. It is human nature to want to. To do these things is to embrace your own life, your own desires, your own carnal nature, to worship yourself. And through this religion which he gave me, I realized that loving life is not about slavishly serving the world. It's about connecting with the world through your own desires, acknowledging that yes, there are times when you will be in great pain, and maybe it is senseless, maybe it's not worth it. But you push through it anyway because you have a will, because you are pursuing your own desires, your own experiences. The person I loved was doing that, but I wasn't. I didn't seem to have an inherent will to live. So I felt damned, and still, today, every day, I feel damned, not by the Christian God, but by the LaVeyan Satan, by myself. I, myself, judge the way that I am living and disapprove because it is painful. I, myself, want to improve. So thank goodness that Satan is a god of change and self improvement, not of forgiving a flaw and saying, it's okay, you can just be a mess like that, but of acknowledging your own desire to be stronger. I want to do better and I will. It's on me to escape the damnation that comes of relying on external morality for motivation. This is just the beginning of my journey. I came to self service through someone else, and I don't think I can ever give myself genuine power as long as I attribute my self service to someone else. I don't want to shy away from living in my body anymore. I want to believe that pleasure is worthwhile even though we suffer. I don't want to sacrifice my pleasure to a thing that can save me from suffering. Instead, I want to sacrifice the many numbing agents that promised to save me from suffering. I want to sacrifice them to pleasure, and then live, in pleasure and in suffering. This is how I hope that I can be truly saved. I'm trying to come to Satanism inherently, rather than by the command of another god. This doesn't mean that I go alone. On the contrary, I believe that carnal life extends well beyond a single body. It includes our investment in the fate of others. Our compassion is a kind of bionic extension that allows our sense of motivation to extend beyond individual personhood. Compassion doesn't mean we put others before ourselves. It means that as others' emotions inspire emotion for us too, we truly become bigger people in the sense of expanding. More things affect us. But that self, that life, all the things that inspire passions in us, whether that includes others or not, is truly all we have. So let's build that up together. Let's get invested in things. Let's care about things. Let's embrace life. You might not like the word Satanism, and I think that's okay. I'm not even certain that it's the best term to describe me. I'm just attempting to start a conversation about how we can affirm life and face suffering and still relate to each other.